How do you create something that's different than everyone else? You do it differently than everyone else. Here at Copeland Creative, we specialize in telling captivating stories of wild people, wild things, and wild places. We don't just capture the story, we immerse ourselves in it. We are a diverse, multi-talented media house based in North Georgia, and if you have a story that needs told, we want to help you tell it.
Card 1 cannot be accessed. Reinsert the card, change the card, or format the card. Nice.
Okay.
Reinsert. Just reinsert it and see what happens. Sorry guys, we thought we had this figured out, but it completely killed it. It turned it completely black now. So this is awesome. It's still black. Oh, there it is. No, still says the same thing. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to. Okay. Roll over. Too far. Too much. Back. You got to go all the way the other way. Keep going. Go. Nope. Too far. Other way. One more. No, that one. Do you not have it in your quick setup? Just unplug it. And do it. Why does it care? Does it have a card in it? Does the other camera have a card in it?
Cannot format.
What?
All right, I'll go get another CF card. You know, we should really do this before we have everybody on the podcast.
Well, I thought that it was just going to be easy and pop it up. Sorry,
Is it ever easy?
No, it's never easy. You know what I can do though? Here's what I can do. MacBook. No, not that. Let's add a new input. FaceTime cam. Okay.
Card 1 cannot be accessed.
Dude, what is wrong with that camera? You have to switch the whole camera over.
Also this one, piece of shit.
Which one?
That one.
Okay. Okay. Now you should be able to hear me. There we go. There we go. Now you should be able to hear me. Took me a second to get the audio input. Let me know if you can hear me. What's the word? Confirm that you heard Red Velvet. Working? No? Nice.
I mean, we did pull this camera out of the camera graveyard.
Yeah, but it still should. Does it not take an SD card? You can't put an SD card in there?
Well, yeah, I'm getting there. I got troubleshoot. It's a process.
Oh, good God. Oh, this is
You
a
did IT.
train wreck. Train wreck it is. Let me look at Ryer's phone, see if anybody's asking a question. Yep. Okay. We spitballing on this one, so if you guys have any questions, let us know. Well, that is cattywampus. He's got to fix that. That's terrible. Red Velvet. Good deal. Okay. We can hear now.
What?
The code word to make sure they could hear me was Red Velvet, and they've confirmed that they heard Red Velvet. So now that I forgot to add the audio input. Good God. So, yeah, your little live shots cattywampus too. You're going to have to fix that. I set this whole room up while you were downstairs, so. Oh, you wasn't doing nothing. All right. We
Now. 75 stairs. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that.
got her.
Card slots.
Plug her in there.
I'm gonna focus it first.
Make sure all your info and stuff's still off. Good deal. All right, we're going to switch back to the other input as soon as he plugs that sucker in.
Critical focus has been attained. Plugging in live video feed.
Plugging in live video feed. Insert HDMI cable. Scene. There it is. We're back. Thank God. Lord have mercy. That's what y'all are supposed to be seeing here. So.
Okay, so now I gotta move this one.
Yeah, just straighten it up. Here you can look on yours to see like why it's crooked. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I can't see it in the other camera, so that's good too. Nice. Now you got to walk all the way around the room so you don't trip over 19 cables. And y'all let us know how you like this setup too, because this is new for us. We're trying something.
You want to make bets on whether or not those shut off in the middle?
What shuts off? Those? Yeah, I know. That'd be terrible. But there are worse things. We'll be lit, though. I mean, lit AF.
I'm always lit.
Okay.
I show up to the office lit.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, the 50 is eventually going to have to scoot back a little further because we're still pretty tight, but it's not terrible.
Side angle makes me look,
Buff.
no, not very buff.
Okay. So you're going to manage the Redneck Tech thing since we're doing a spitballing podcast, correct?
Yeah, I know what my spitballing is going to be.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I have one topic.
All right, well, then let's just get going that then. Because I'm watching the YouTube, you're watching that, and we're about to roll into this.
The YouTube may halt being live after we get our whole camera thing set up.
True story. Yeah, that might be a thing. We might not go live on YouTube anymore. It might just all be
We could always go
after the
live
fact.
on Instagram or TikTok like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Because with this setup, it's a lot easier to do that.
Shoot, yeah, it is. Okay.
We still haven't figured out how to route clean audio into that, though, which we need to figure out someday.
Yeah. There's got to be a way to route it to this board.
I
There's
know
no
there
reason
is.
we can't.
Well, we've tried 4 different.
Well, there's that. Don't we have a cable that we can just plug that directly into?
No, remember we've tried that like 7 times, and we always get the weird. We always get weird stuff happening. I'm just gonna have to rework that solution.
Okay, let's do this thing.
Maybe I should put this on the other side. The Redneck Tech Podcast is brought to you by Mike'sArchery.com. They're a one-stop shop for virtually everything archery, bow hunting, and for your next outdoor adventure. Mike's Archery has been at the top of the archery game for over 50 years, and they want to give listeners of the Redneck Tech Podcast 10% off their entire online store using the code REDNECK10, all one word. Just put the code in before you check out, and your boys will hook you up. The guys at Mike's have always been good to us, and now they can be good to you too. Visit Mike'sArchery.com and get your gear now.
Right here. Yeah. You want him? Yeah. And we're back. Episode 185. We're calling this one Spitball, and Ryan and I have been sitting up here for 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Trying a new setup. Eventually there's going to be a 3-camera. Just because I think we're not going to go live anymore. We haven't made up our minds yet. But we just wanted to look better for you guys, make the content better. It's going to cost us a little extra money, but hey, you know what is money anymore? I mean, we're just made of it, right? I wish. So
I don't know. Money seems to be more important these days.
Yeah, more important than ever. But so we're going to call this one Spitballing because that's literally what Ryan and I have been doing is spitballing for about the last 30 minutes on what we're going to talk about. And we ended up talking about 75 different things. So I was like, let's just turn the podcast on, turn the live on, and see where it goes. So we are live on Instagram. We're live on YouTube. The YouTube sounds a lot better than the Instagram does because we still haven't figured out a good way to route audio into there, which we're still working on. But you're going to have to scoot in because you're almost out of the frame. Or I'm going to have to scoot back here, and you're going to have to scoot in. Yeah, we're going to have to back that 50 up some. But anyway.
Careful.
Oh, your phone's over there? My bad.
I'm using your laptop to prop up my phone so that I don't have to hold it, and I don't have to go like this to look at it.
Nice. So,
if you're on the Redneck Tech Live, feel free to chime in, ask questions, comments, withhold any concerns, and make sure everything is very positive.
And sorry about the technical difficulties on this one. Hold on. Nathan Winterstein said use the LR out of the board as a splitter into a mini to the camera. I have that. I have that cable. I feel like we've done that though.
Well,
there was some crazy sound feedback.
And I have a left-right.
Yeah, I do too.
The problem is, doesn't our left-right go to this?
No. Well, there's another one over there. There's like a monitor left-right.
I feel like I tried that because I definitely, because I remember having the quarter stereo left-right into a 1/4 inch to 3.5 millimeter jack converter into a big 3.5, which then went to that little the 3.5 to lightning adapter.
Yeah.
And did it not work?
I don't remember.
Or was our 3.5 not big enough, maybe?
I don't remember. But if you guys are wondering on the Instagram Live what this T-shirt is, it's to flag off some light from back there. It was just an idea. Never tried it. Oh, nice. Okay, well.
I feel like we have. I could try it right now. If I can find the parts immediately accessible.
There's a whole table full of plugins back there.
Do we want to try it?
Not really, but
okay. Well,
this says
we'll try it in
Red Forest says your left-right monitor needs to have its own power source, I believe, as I've tried it as well. Well, it would have its own power source. It's coming out of the Rodecaster.
Maybe the Rode doesn't send phantom power.
Yeah, but it shouldn't need phantom power you wouldn't think.
Audio is a very weird and interesting place.
Yes, it is.
Like the amount of rings on this
is important.
Will cause something to be incompatible because this, like a stereo will have 2, but if you've got a mic on the cord, it'll have 3.
Yeah.
And a mono will only have 1. So if you try to mix them all, It's like,
It's
what are you doing?
trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to do this on the R5. We thought, like, man, that looks steezy and sexy, but we forgot the R5 will overheat if we leave it on there for an hour. So the old trusty 5D Mark IV that Ryer recently, quote-unquote, retired to their podcast room is what we're doing this podcast on today. And it does look like it's coming through. What?
That's not the I was thinking of the 6D. The 6D is in the graveyard for a reason I have since forgotten.
Well, it's
that's
'cause
why
you got
I had
the 5D Mark IV, yeah.
No, but we had to get the 5D because my 6D was on the fritz. Something happened to it. I forget what it was, but like it wasn't working.
I don't remember, but it works perfectly for our podcast so far.
Yeah, there was something weird going on with it.
Anyway.
I just forget what it was.
So, spitballing. Ryer had a couple things he wanted to talk about. I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about movies again, but we've done that before. But that was our most listened to podcast ever. I might talk about a series. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But what is it you want to talk about? I'll let you go first.
I wanted to talk about just some stuff that I've been doing to try to further my own education as mostly an editor and a storyteller, but also, I guess, as a shooter as well, because everything kind of cross-pollinates when you are a multi-tool, as you must be in this industry. And
a Swiss Army knife, if you will.
I'd rather be like an American Army knife.
I'd rather be a Leatherman. Just can do it all.
Leatherman's good. Yeah.
But here's the problem with the Leatherman. It didn't really do anything great. It just does a bunch of little things okay. So maybe a Leatherman's not a good analogy. Because I want to be really good at a couple of them.
I'd rather be an A10 Warthog. If we're like, hey, you could choose to be any weapon you want to be, I would probably be an A10 Warthog, which is a plane that's really just only good at one thing, and it's wrecking things on the ground. It's not fast, it's not pretty, but like if you're on the ground and it is above you, and it doesn't want you to be on the ground anymore, you will no longer be on the ground.
Peter Berg just did a podcast with Rogan I've been listening to, and he's like, they've got these helicopters now that they put these masks on, and he's like,
oh yeah, and they look
where
around.
they turn their head, the helicopter goes where they turn their head, and then where they move their eyes, the guns go. So if they look at you, they kill you. He's like, I've seen the Mona Lisa. I've seen Notre Dame. I've seen many Van Goghs, and they're beautiful. But who's building cooler than that? And I'm like, nobody, dude. And Rogan's just laughing. And that's the truth. It's like, he's like, the innovation in the technology. He said, think about where we're the best at. And he's like, it's all in weapon systems. He's like, we got to tour this submarine. Y'all need to listen to the podcast. It's pretty good. This nuclear submarine that had can't remember how many nuclear warheads in it. He's like, how much are those? And they're like, we can't tell you. He walks into the navigation room. He's like, how much is all that? And they're like, we can't tell you. He's like, billions of dollars on this one ship. And he's like, and I was standing at Pearl Harbor and there was 7 of them. He's like, why do we need 7? He said 1 would destroy the world and we have 7.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, but we have thousands and thousands of nuclear warheads.
Oh yeah.
1's going to do the job. Why we need thousands?
Russia's a very large country.
Dude.
You would need, if it was like Russia.
Yeah, but everybody lives in one spot. If you look at the population density of Russia, it's like 3 places, and then everything else is desolate.
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to live anywhere but those 3 places in Russia? Everywhere else in Russia is just cold.
But I've always wanted to go to Siberia. I've always had this fascination with
I'd love to go to St. Petersburg. I'd love to go there.
I want to go to
It seems
Siberia.
very cool.
I want to ride the Trans-Siberian Railway. It's 40 hours straight wilderness.
Will you also be listening to the orchestra?
Absolutely, the whole time. I just want to get on that train and just go into the woods, and then it just be woods for 40 hours. Can you imagine?
I think I got maybe 2 hours, and I was like, all right, that's enough woods.
It's the best sleep I'd ever gotten, though. That's the best sleep I ever got was on a tour bus, on Lee and Tiff's old tour bus.
Really?
Oh, dude. Going down the road, bottom bunk. They had blackout curtains. Just going down the road in that air ride in that bus. Oh, man, I've never slept so good in my life.
Have you ever seen, this goes back a minute and a half in the conversation, but have you ever seen those TikToks where it is playing a metal song, probably Enter Sandman, and it's insert name of country here is about to find out why the U.S. doesn't have national health care, and it's just the military rolling in.
That's why.
That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, but there goes the Spitballing podcast. Went way off on a tangent there. So I know you've been doing a lot of independent work and research and reading, and you even subscribed to a magazine here recently to try and better yourself and completely, that was something that Rob Kinney, when I was on the phone with him, he's like, he bragged on you big time. It's like nobody that I know works on themselves and tries to get better more than Ryer. It's like that guy is a gym. I'm like, he's okay.
I don't know if I'd call myself a gym. I'm looking a little bit more like a fast food restaurant at the moment.
Well,
although I did lose 10 pounds in about 5 days in British Columbia.
Yeah, but have you gotten it back since you got back yet?
I don't know, and I won't be able to know because I can't use the same scales. I weighed myself up there, so you can't account for the error.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks, Rob. Rob's a real one. He's a G.
He is. I like Rob.
Him and I think, connected on first sight when realizing that we were both gingers. And so we come from a shared life experience of just getting picked on forever.
And misunderstood.
For no reason.
Yeah.
For no reason. Just hate.
Y'all really ride that wagon, though. Big time. Y'all gingers, man. And you've lost your cross eye, so you don't have that anymore. So now it's all about being a ginge.
It's always all about being a ginge. I think that, I think that people are racist towards gingers. And I've had to deal with that. So, when you meet somebody else who's come from that life experience, you connect with them. And Rob and I did. And, I think that something that I've always tried to do, and this has probably been, I think my parents probably instilled this in me when I was a kid, but, always trying to better yourself and develop your skills in whatever area it may be. And I think that a lot of times in the creative industry, one, people rest on their laurels, and two, I don't know if people really go and seek out resources to learn about their craft and the trade of, video editing and cinematography and everything that's involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that is. I think that, one, because you can kind of, you don't have to do it, right? You can learn enough on YouTube and by doing it that your work looks good and is
good enough,
to a level that will get you the work that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine, I certainly think that not everybody needs to or wants to be constantly trying to fine-tune their craft.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, and this goes for almost any career, I think that what separates the people who stand out and the rest of everybody in whatever career is usually the little things that they're doing, quote unquote, off the court, right?
Mm-hmm.
To better themselves and to better their gameplay. Like when you watch a documentary on whatever great athlete from any sport, at some point in that documentary, somebody is going to say, yeah, he was the hardest worker in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He was always watching film. He was always picking apart his own plays. He was always, seeking to be better. He was always taking mentorship from his coaches. He was always putting in 500 extra free throws after practice. He was always
Kobe's always been
doing the extra weights or doing this, that, and the other thing. And I think that sometimes in the creative field, it's not as easy. It's not as easy to do that because what is that, right? What's the extra work that you're putting in off the court? Our on the court is obviously filming in the field and editing. So when you're on the court, obviously you play as hard as you and work as hard as you can, but what are the things that you're doing off the court? And that's a hard question to answer. What are you supposed to do to make yourself better? And for me, I think that I think that one of those things is intentionally trying to find resources to consume that aren't just entertainment and are from people who have been there and done that and are some of the greats of this industry. And so, like, I like to go get books. I know that, like, not a lot of people like to read, but there's a ton of books written by people who work at the highest levels of the creative industry. Usually those books are by people working in Hollywood or high-level TV production, neither of which I really care to be involved in.
Yeah, same.
Like, I don't really want to work on a Hollywood movie. I don't really want to work on, like, a big network narrative television show. But at the end of the day, all of the things that they say are transferable in some regards to what we do every day. And so I've found that reading some of those books, trying to listen to some of those podcasts, trying to find interviews with those people, behind the scenes stuff, all of that kind of things, and consuming it gives me, that's my off the court work. Oh,
What?
the Instagram Live's doing something real funny. I don't know what it's doing. It just had a freak out. And I think also trying to look and view things that maybe aren't necessarily what we do and I do. I know you and I talk about all the time consuming media that's not from the hunting industry.
Which is virtually all I consume anymore.
Yeah, but I like to go.
That did change for me last night. I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm. But I think further, and I think this is part of me trying not to ever, like, fall into a rut, but, like, reading stories versus just watching stories. Obviously watching movies and TV shows that I wouldn't necessarily watch, and then trying to, like, I like to listen to classical music sometimes, which is very odd. Most people don't like to listen to classical
Well,
music.
you're an odd bird, Ryder.
Yeah.
I think people know that by
Yeah,
now.
but I think that there's like a different type of inspiration you can pull from classical music. Like, I listen to classical music and I don't think about it as music. I listen to it and my brain comes up with, like, what scene would this be? What's going on in this scene?
Well, I hear music
and then
all
being
the
able to,
I
like,
hear music all the time that I'm like, oh, this would be a really cool X, Y, and Z, a really cool recovery, a really cool,
Right.
Hiking up a mountain. This would be a really cool, suspenseful lead up into. I do that too. Not with classical, but definitely do that in music.
And I think I like to do it with classical because when you watch a movie, that's a large majority of the type of music that's in there. And I definitely feel like it's underutilized and kind of people shy away from it because they may not, like, really know what to look for or how to utilize that kind of music in an edit. But generally, I think, long story short, I think that if you want to be good in this industry and as a creator, I think you constantly have to try to be educating yourself and evolving. I think you got to be able to, one, want to and seek out those avenues of knowledge in the form of books and magazines and podcasts and lectures and whatever else, and intake those all the time. And then you also have to, like, watch film. I think you got to look at your stuff constantly and go, how can I make it better? How can I do it better? How come I don't like this? What didn't I like about this, and how can I do it better?
Yeah, and that might segue really well into what I want to talk about.
I also brought examples of some of the things that I've read.
Well, I'll use my segue in a minute, but just I want to not add to that, but
I gotta fix that.
I want to say it's also a testament to that. It shows how passionate you are about what you do, which I think that a lot of people don't have the fortune that we do and have a job that they're like, I want to get better at this thing. I want to be the best there is. I want to
be the very best.
Well, they don't want to look at when they get home from whatever their job is. If they don't enjoy it or they're not passionate about it, the last thing they're going to think about is how do I get better at this thing? How do I become more efficient at this? They're looking at either how I can make more money or how I can upsell or how I can do less work and make more money. They're not looking at how do I put my art in a platform in front of the eyeballs that people go, that moved me, that did something to me. And I think that's, I look at that and I have to remind myself all the time of how blessed we are to get to do something like that. I'm also not going to be the first person to sit here and say, or I will be the first person to sit here and say, there's pieces of content that we've done that we're like, they're okay. Or, we have to do that to pay the bills. That's just part of life.
What it is.
But there's been a handful, some current projects that we're working on that are like, as my grandmother says, they really blow our skirt up. That's what we really want to do. And we watch it and people watch it and they like it, but we're like, we can do it better. How do we make it like that's the thing I go to with my kids all the time when I put them to bed. I'm like, how can I be 1% better tomorrow than I was today? Or not even, listen, all right, 1%, that's a lot. In 100 days, technically you should be 100% better. 0.1% better tomorrow than I was today.
Mm-hmm.
Just striving to do something a little bit better every day. And then taking that time. Like, I don't do as much anymore. I used to do a lot of what you do of trying to get better at my craft and this, that, and the other. Now that my role has changed a little bit, now, like, I listened to the one with Peter Berg because I've watched a lot of stuff that Peter Berg has done, which, I like him as a director. But listen to some of the insights on how he goes about getting a project, how he goes about getting a project funded, where that project came from, how he gets an idea and now turns that into a large docuseries or a docudrama or whatever. Like, that's where my energy has shifted, is like, how do we take the 9 million ideas that bounce around these walls on any given day and turn those into projects that we are, again, something that blow our skirt up, that we can make money on, that we can do different than the 97,000 hunting shows that are already out there. And that's where my, my extra energy has went into, like, how does the series come to fruition? Now, I've been fortunate enough to get to see a couple of series go from ideas to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
The Habit was one that wasn't my idea, but I kind of made that one go. Make It Happen was always my idea from the very beginning, and got fortunate enough to still get to work on it. Boot Leather was, it was a collective, but the beginning, the initial idea was mine. I met Chris and had the idea, and then you jumped in and made it better, and then Clay jumped in and made it better, and Bergara jumped in and made it even better. In which that's what I think. I'm really good at the 10,000 foot view.
Mm-hmm.
But I really look to you and to Clay and to Joe and to, whatever the client is, to say, hey, here's the 10,000 foot idea, slide it across the table and say, okay, how do we make this thing really, really cool? Like, I can see the big idea in my head, but when we're drilling down to the dailies and this hunt, like, I usually have an idea to where it's like, okay, here's the major concept of, let's just take Boot Leather's example. Like, I met Chris. Chris is awesome, works harder than anybody I've ever met. Trashes boots like left and right. We came up with the idea of Boot Leather. And it's like, okay, essentially the idea is like, how do we follow a guide that's always successful and show the work that goes into it? And I know, like, here's the couple hunts we want to do, and here's the concept of how we want to do them. But now, how do we take these 6 ideas and drill those down into episodes, drill those down into reels, drill those down into images,
Mm-hmm.
and then hand those to Bergara and have deliverables and also have something that we're proud of. And we're two of 6 in, and it's going well. I mean, I'm happy with how they're going. And now the next ones are going to be hunting ones, which that's what we've been trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very fortunate to have someone like Regar who lets us go do 2 episodes that don't even have a gun in them.
Mm-hmm.
No, like, they don't care. They just want the story. They want the passion. They want the what these companies should care about, which is the people on the ground doing the things, and not whoring a gun in your face every episode. There's something to be said for that. Anyway, you said you had some examples.
Yeah. So, I think, let's see.
If you're not watching the video portion of this, sorry for your luck.
And I've thought about doing a reading club with the Redneck Tech. I just don't know how many people would do it. So,
what would a reading club entail?
Like reading.
And then getting on and talking about it?
Yeah. Having like a discussion about it or whatever.
Well, heck, we could make that part of the podcast.
We could. You'd have to read.
Do they sell an audiobook? 'Cause I'm not reading. I listen to an audiobook all day. I ain't reading. I don't have the patience to read, dude. I can sit and listen to one going down the road, but I can't sit down at night and read a book. Just can't do it.
I do it like going to bed. That's usually when I read.
That's when I watch my series that I want to talk about.
I usually watch a series and then I'll go to bed. But also I have a lot more disposable time than you do. So
yeah, well, I'm usually yelling at the kid to get back in the bed.
The first book, oh man, apparently I decided to take notes about when I read this. I read this 8 years ago.
Nice.
In 2015. So I guess that would have been the first year I was, doing this.
Young buck.
Young buck. So the first book that I read is called In the Blink of an Eye, A Perspective on Film Editing, 2nd edition. And it's by Walter Murch. And if you guys don't know who Walter Murch is, you've probably seen some of his work. He's a really influential editor, obviously. And he edited The Conversation, America Graffiti, Julia, Apocalypse Now, The Godfather Part 2 and 3, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, House of Cards, Ghost, Crumb, The English Patient, and The Talented Mr. Ripley, I'm sure, among other things. And this is a lot about like his approach to editing, how he makes cuts, why he makes cuts, and some of like the behind the curtain stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was the first one I read. I definitely would recommend that to people. I think it's an awesome book. The next one that I read was called The Conversations.
It's not a big book,
No.
too. It's a fairly small book.
The next
150
one
pages.
is The Conversations, Walter Murch and the Art of Editing Film. And that is basically a guy having conversations with the same dude, Walter, on his approaches to kind of some of the different pieces of work that he made. And this one was really insightful, so I like that one. I have two more that I'm currently reading.
This is the same author as this one?
It's a different author, the same, like, it's kind of like an interview format. So the author will ask questions and Walter will answer them. And so it was over the course of a few different interviews and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's that one that I really liked.
It's got pictures. Solid.
References. I'm reading two right now. One of them is I think it's the same author as this, but it is
Michael Onda, however you say that name.
Sure.
Whatever.
But it is the same concept, except for instead of one editor, he's got like interviews with tons of editors. Everybody from movie editors to TV editors, working in all kinds of genres of film and TV and documentary. So that one kind of goes step by step through all of their workflows and how they're handling how they handle basically their approaches from
I'm showing it in case people want to see it.
From the like idea to getting the footage, organizing their workspaces, how they're pulling dailies and selects and all of those kind of stuff, like all the technical bits and pieces that go behind stuff, and then also their approaches to music and pacing and all of these kind of things. and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And then I have a few of these, but these are just photo books.
Yeah, I've seen that one in your thing.
And so this one is National Geographic Greatest Portraits, but these are just good to flip through. Like something like this is good to flip through because, I mean, these are some of the most influential and artistic photos of, I don't know, however long National Geographic has been. You know, National Geographic is known for incredible documentary photography.
Mm-hmm.
And so flipping through this book and being able to see kind of all of these different pictures is great for just viewing stuff that's excellent and being able to see, you know, all of these different photos and how they're composed and how they're lit and how they're colored and all of those kind of things, and trying to kind of dissect it in your brain and having that as a reference when you're shooting and taking pictures. I have another one, the, what's it called? Photos from the Edge by Jimmy Chin, because Jimmy Chin's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to flip through those, and he's got actual like writing and stories with his. And then the magazine that I just subscribed to, which I did not know existed until I was flying to BC. Yeah, I went and walked into the Delta Lounge, and they had like, you know, the case of magazines, and I saw one said The American Cinematographer, and it's a magazine from the American Society of Cinematographers. That's ASC. So if you've ever wondered why somebody has ASC at the end of their name, it's because they're part of the American Society of Cinematographers, which I don't want to be a part of the ASC necessarily. I would like to have ACE behind my name, which is American Cinema Editors.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's cool to just have Ace after your name.
Yeah. And if you think that at some point when I get ACE at the end of my name, you don't think that's going on every single everything with my name, you're mistaten. Also,
isn't it like a yearly fee too, though?
Yeah, but put ACE on all your stuff. Yeah.
Worth it.
But this is cool. I haven't read a whole ton of them. I'm kind of working through. But
what's your initial thoughts on that one?
I like it. It has one. Obviously, they've got all of the advertisements for all of the newest products.
Naturally,
you know, like there's a Teradek. That's the Alexa 35. I guess a show. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K. A company that specializes in car-mounted cranes and dollies and such, which we'll never get to use. But basically all the things. So it's cool because I try to keep up on the tech. There's just too much tech coming out all the time. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll be able to see what different things are. And as I go through here, you know, maybe there's something that would be useful for us. It has a section called Shotcraft at the very beginning, which is basically like this little technical tutorial discussion section explaining different things. This one has kind of an article on exploring cinematography through a single frame, and it's basically, you won't be able to see it, but it's basically talking about how you can look at a frame, pick it apart, determine where the lighting sources are coming from, determine the intensity of the lighting sources, and then using that information to recreate the frame as a way of practicing, which is something that I would like to do. Just
would love to
at
have
some
time
point.
to do that.
And then like they have like any magazine articles. This first article that I read was called "In the Driver's Seat for Gran Turismo," and it's essentially kind of a behind-the-scenes look of how they shot Gran Turismo, which I went and saw in theaters 2 weeks ago. And so, you know, they're talking about their approach to shooting it, what cameras they're using, how they rigged them up, where and how they're getting coverage, locations, all that stuff. And so, you know, just like any magazine, it's going to have a ton of those kind of interviews. Like this has In the Driver's Seat for Gran Turismo, Cinematic Instincts, Fadon Papamichael discusses his career and key aspects of his latest feature, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. All the Worlds is set. AC presents an in-depth primer on international production. And a article on drone cinematography. Experts in the field discuss the techniques and equipment they use to achieve dynamic off-the-ground perspectives. So, just, you never know what you're going to get necessarily with it, but it's just a ton of cool things and interviews and discussions with people who are in the industry. And I think part of what's driven me to like want this kind of stuff as opposed to just going to YouTube is, I think just the same way as at the I felt this way. I don't know if it's necessarily the case anymore, but at the beginning of your career, you know, you feel like there's a wall of knowledge that you can't seem to access the other side of it. Obviously, part of why we do this is because for you in the hunting industry, it was like, well, I can find all the information I want on like how to film an indie home movie, but I don't know about tree arms. I don't know about what do I carry with me on an elk hunt. How do I film a turkey hunt? What gear is somebody using in a hunting context? And, you know, people weren't talking about that. And so that's where this was born out of. And I feel the same way about once you reach a certain point in your career as an editor and cinematographer and documentarian or whatever it may be, the access to those resources
You can bring it up here.
become significantly
Thank you. My beautiful wife bringing me a sweet tea from Chick-fil-A. Thanks,
don't
babe.
spill it on your computer this time.
Shut up. That was Zaxby's. That wasn't Chick-fil-A.
They become significantly decreased, and that's because, one, the amount of people who have reached that level are very small, and two, the people who are at that level don't have time to be making YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I mean, even I would not say that we're at a incredibly high level, but even us, we have a hard time finding the time to do this and to make the YouTube videos for Redneck Tech. And the more advanced you get, the harder it is to do those things because it takes a lot more time to talk about them in depth. And so I feel like I keep getting to this point where I'm like Googling and I can't find the answers to the question that I'm searching for. And I know that the answers are out there.
Yeah.
I know that there's people who are doing whatever it is I'm trying to do and have the information that I'm trying to access. But you're going to have a hard time finding that on a YouTube. I think YouTube is great for finding entry level, intermediate level tutorial stuff because it's easy to make a tutorial on L cuts and J cuts and a whip pan transition and this kind of graphic effect and this, that, and the other. But when you're looking to do more advanced level things, if you're looking to step up your ability to produce and edit at a more commercial, more Netflix series, more network TV that's not the hunting channels level, that information isn't just on YouTube because those people aren't putting it there.
Yeah.
The people who are making YouTube content largely, now there are exceptions, there's what's that guy that Clay always watched? Shane Hurlbutt. You know, there's people like him who are putting out phenomenal stuff, but they're few and far between. So books and magazines and things of that nature are where you're going to find the next level of knowledge. And so that's why I find myself trying to find these resources to be able to consume so that I'm not stuck with the level of the highest level of knowledge that's accessible on YouTube. I want the highest level of knowledge that's accessible anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be stuff like this.
Yeah, but I think it also goes again to aspirations to not necessarily not do hunting, but to do better at what we're doing, to cross genres, to get more into bigger budget things. And just like what you said, like if we wanted to do a Netflix series or an Amazon Prime series or anything like that, the reason they're better is because they take more time. They take more people. They take more stuff. That's
They take more knowledge.
They take more everything. They cost way more, but there's a reason that they cost way more, and that we're not going to get into those weeds. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Let me look at something really quick. I can't remember. I'm supposed to. Oh yeah, I got to leave in 15 minutes. So let me jump into real quick the one thing I wanted to talk about since we only get 15 minutes before I got to leave. Kind of, it's completely off subject from what you were talking about, but it's, I guess not really. I guess I can kind of tie it back in. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but everybody knows my favorite series of all time was The Newsroom. So Aaron Sorkin wrote and directed The Newsroom, so I wanted to kind of dive down the Aaron Sorkin rabbit hole, and I've seen The Social Network, which he also did. I've seen what was the other one? There's another big movie that he did that I watched it. They were great, but they just didn't do it for me like the Newsroom did. So he did The West Wing, which came out in the early 2000s, and it was a much more in-depth series similar to The Newsroom. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to dive down the West Wing rabbit hole. And I dove very deeply. And me and you talked about it a couple of times, as it had some really strong characters, but I just didn't fall in love with those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've finished the series, I don't know why I didn't fall in love with them, because I'm not even going to sit here and lie about it. I had tears in my eyes when it was over with. That he did it was very, did I like it as much as The Newsroom? No. I still love the characters in The Newsroom more, but by the end of it, I loved multiple characters in The Newsroom after 2.5 seasons, and then 6 or 7 seasons of West Wing, and there's like 26 episodes in a season. So it's a very in-depth library. It was a big, I didn't think I was ever going to get done. But about season 4 is where it changed for me. And I can't put my finger on why, to be completely honest, and I want to watch it again. Just like we said, we want to go watch Oppenheimer again. Up until about the 3rd-ish, 4th-ish season, I mean, this is 70-something episodes in, I was like, it's good. It's very Aaron Sorkin. I mean, the dialogue is never ending. It is relentless. There's never a dull moment. There's the very occasional, every 10 to 15 episodes, he'll put in a very meaningful montage. That's the only time you don't have dialogue. It is, and they're using, I mean, it's about the West Wing and the White House, obviously. So they're talking about very, very high-level stuff all the time. Budgets and this organization, that organization, this senator, this congressman, this political strategy, this political operative, this, and this. And again, I'm not a political guy. I mean, I have, political views, but this is very left-leaning. I mean, every one of them are crazy liberals, every one of them. But like I said, I loved loved so many characters in Newsroom. By the end of season 6, I think is the end of it, that president, Jed Bartlett, I love that guy. He was the Will McAvoy of the West Wing, or of Newsroom. And at the end, he was a crazy liberal economist. But that guy's character and the dialogue and the way he treated people and the way he stood his ground, the way he managed situations, the thought and passion that actor put into the decisions he had to make as the president, that guy was awesome. Because by the end, essentially the series follows Jed Bartlett through his 8 years of presidency. His first 4 years and then his re-election. Spoilers, by the way. It's a very old series, and I highly recommend you watch it. It is a giant investment. First 4 years of his presidency, then they do some flashbacks of how he got elected, why he ran. His chief of staff is his best friend. Awesome freaking character. And then the second 4 years after his re-election, some major health issues that he hid from the public, and then you don't really know how you feel about that. And I guess that may be where it was the turning point for me, is when he gets re-elected, and they add this new facet to his character of he's not just the president, he's the president that has multiple sclerosis. And he is battling not only his job, his wife that wants him to slow down the public who has a perception of him now, and himself fighting his own mortality of like, I could die.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could be incapacitated where I can't do this job that he loves so much. And at the very end, again, I'm giving some major spoilers, but this is what really got me. This is what made the tears start coming. The whole time you're watching the series, and freaking Sorkin was slapping. He's so freaking smart. The whole time, like Jed Bartlett leads by example. He's a leader to the core. He leads his troops. He leads all the people in the West Wing, and he is all about working. Like the dude's a workaholic. Which, I mean, the president, you kind of have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I also compare him to what we have in office now, and like I would much rather have the liberal Jed Bartlett in there than what we have now. But anyway, he's leading by example. He's taking the bull by the horns. He's being the leader, and every time that he's one of those guys, he's very task-oriented. He focuses on a task. He sees it through until he's either delegated it, handled it, or it's fixed, or it's not going to get fixed. And he always says, "What's next?" Like, that was his line. Is he would bring them into the room. They'd talk about this, that, and the other. He'd be like, "Okay," and he would literally end the meeting. "What's next?" And it was just always constantly throughout the series, through the first however many 100 episodes, that was always his line. Is like that was in it, and he did a good job of conveying. When he says what's next, that means whatever was just talked about is over with. I want the next thing. Give me the next thing. And at the very end, the whole last season is his last year in office and the two guys that are running to replace him after 8 years, and how essentially they went out and found what they think is the next Jed Bartlett to run as the Democrat. And then there's a Republican that's more of a right-center Republican, and they have these issues that they are staunchly don't agree on, but there are some things they do agree on, and they're trying to figure out how to run their campaigns not agreeing type thing. And essentially, at the very end, the Jed Bartlett protege type person gets elected, and it's the very end. They're in the Oval Office. It's like his first day in office. They bring in the meeting. He does just like Jed Bartlett. He brings in, he handles the meeting, he commands the meeting, ends it, and he goes, "What's next?" And I'm like, son of a... And it just gut punched me because I didn't see it coming, and I should have seen it coming.
Yeah.
And because he handled it, he did everything just like I'd watched do 500 times through the series. And then he just is like, "What's next?" And they bring him the next thing, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And it was just that 2 words, "What's next?" That thread that he threaded through every episode of that.
Mm-hmm.
That at the very end, man, freaking just gut punched me, because it's like, that's not Jed Bartlett saying it. Now it's Matt Santos saying it. And Jed's now on Marine One, flying to be flown back home to New Hampshire, where he's from, to be with his family. And like, he's not there anymore. And I know the series is ending. I mean, I knew it was the last episode, and they set it up. Like, you can see the story arc ending, but it's like, you don't want it to end. I didn't want it to end. I wanted to see what Matt Santos did, because I've seen what Jed Bartlett did. I wanted to see how his fictitious United States did, because they're battling issues that we're battling now still. And they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to make their compromises. They're trying to make everybody happy. They're trying not to say, because those guys in the West Wing thought, Republicans were idiots. That's what that's what the guys under him did. But anytime they would go to Jed with it, Jed was always the voice of reason. He was always like, y'all might think that, but y'all got to look at it this way. You got to look at it this way. And they all respected him. Even when they didn't agree with him, they still he's the president. We're here to support him and do what he wants to do. And he created this, I guess I vicariously looked at it like what I want to be or want to do or want to have, I guess. He created a team, and he created these guys that, his deputy chief of staff, his communications director, his speech writers, and these people that are around him that insulate him, that help push his agenda out. He created this team that these guys would have they would literally have like died for him. Like they just loved him so much and believed everything that he did. And when they'd screw up, they knew they screwed up, and how he handled their screw ups and how he would let them essentially not only take responsibility, but how they were more upset than he was because they knew they had screwed up or they knew they had done something wrong.
Mhm.
And then there's a point in there where his chief of staff has a heart attack. They have a really hard time. And in the hospital, Jed goes to him and is like, I need a new chief of staff. Are you going to be better? And he's like, I'll never be able to do it again, essentially. He's like, well, who's going to take your place? I need some names. And he's like him hawing around about giving him names. And he comes back. He's like, I need the names. Like, who's going to, like, somebody's got to be my chief of staff. And he's like, there's only one name. And, like, the whole time you're sitting there, you have in your head who's going to be the next chief of staff, who can do it. And it's not who you think when it eventually reveals who the chief of staff is, but it's exactly who should have been the chief of staff the whole time. After he's just, I get so pissed because he's so good at writing it and the characters are so good at playing it. I just started getting so invested in that story. But then again, I start to think about, okay, how now, this is a Redneck Tech Podcast, how do I take those ideas and those concepts and those stories and those characters and those things and apply them to what we're doing? Well, I'm not going to say you can't, because you can, but essentially, how do I make someone fall in love with a story? And you're not comparing apples to apples because I don't have 6 seasons and hundreds of episodes to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I did. I wish somebody would come and say, hey, I'm going to give you a budget to do 100 episodes. Because then you can tell a friggin' story. Then, like, you can get into the details.
To be fair, they're not getting funding for 100
I know.
episodes. They get funding for.
I know.
They get funding for the first season, and if it tanks, that's all you get. So, you know.
I don't know, but essentially, how do I take character development, story arc? How do I pull things from that to apply it to some of the ideas that we've had in the office? Some of the series ideas, the documentary ideas, the show ideas, you name it. And it's like, you know what, I've come to the realization, I'm just not that good. I'm not even remotely close to the how he can look so far ahead and plant a seed that grows. And that just makes me so mad that I'm not that good. I think that's what part of it is. Like, I watch it and I want to be that, but I'm not. Nor would I ever be.
I mean, they are in a narrative space. We're not in a narrative space.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily plant the seeds as much as you find the seeds.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's.
Look at you, freaking philosophical.
I feel like that's not a whole lot different from what I've said before. I think that, you know, you go into something and you may think you have these ideas on how you want the thing to go, but, you know, over the course of shooting and editing that thing, you'll find what that thread is. Or you're very intentional about threading that through, you know. Like in boot leather, you know, the thread and the intentionality is the hard work, right? So you're trying to constantly follow that thread. It doesn't matter what's happening. All of it always points back to that. It always points back to the boot leather.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't plant that seed, you have to find it somewhere, right? So when I edit the episode, I know that at some point I need to bring it back to that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
When you're shooting the episode, you want to try to make sure that you're setting up scenarios and shooting things and doing interviews and getting the talking that at some point will get you that. And then when you're editing, you have to figure out where to use it. But it's a whole different game than a narrative storytelling approach where you get to decide what that seed is.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know which is harder, you know, because narrative, it just has to come from nowhere, basically. With a documentary, your choices, or reality, not necessarily a documentary, but also a documentary, your choices are limited. Like you can't find a seed that's not there.
Yeah.
And so you can try to force it. But that's kind of the difference in the processes, and they're two really separate but similar approaches. And that's why there's some people who are just excellent, like writers,
Mm-hmm. It makes me mad.
I'm
not a writer, and that's another thing that makes me mad. I'm just not a writer. Like, not even the closest thing to it.
No.
And I love, like, not like book type writing, but like good, like Yellowstone. Like, love well written gut punches.
But
like,
you could be a writer. All you got to do is write.
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to be Aaron Sorkin? No.
No.
But I bet
No, I'm not.
But I bet if you sat down and were like, okay, I want to be a better writer. I would like to be able to write better stories. And you sat down and you started writing a story and you hated yourself for writing the story and how bad it was.
Like every edit I did for the first 3 years of my life.
Yeah, eventually you would get better at writing stories.
Yeah. I got to go. It's 2:45. But I would love to keep going. Maybe we can make a part 2 of this. I like the spitballing. Yep. I like this. We'll go spitballing part 2 next time. All right, I got to go, guys. Very, very sorry. But, Ryer, are you going to be able to upload and do all this to this too? Because I got to go.
Yeah, I'm waiting on VO. I may not get it today, so
okay.
we might just be putting a pin in that edit till I get back.
All right, guys. Thanks. Peace.